Nick Dunne. The day of I swung wide the door of my bar, slipped into the darkness, and took my first real deep breath of the day. Took in the smell of cigarettes and beer, the spice of a dribbled bourbon, the tang of old popcorn. There was only one customer in the bar, sitting by herself at the far, far end. An older woman named Sue who had come in every Thursday with her husband until he died 3 months back. Now she came alone every Thursday, never much for conversation, just sitting with a beer and a crossword, preserving a ritual. My sister was at work behind the bar, her hair pulled back in nerdy girl barrettes, her arms pink as she dipped the beer glasses in and out of hot suds. Go is slender and strange-faced, which is not to say unattractive. Her features just take a moment to make sense. The broad jaw, the pinched, pretty nose, the dark globe eyes. If this were a period movie, a man would tilt back his fedora, whistle at the sight of her, and say, "Now, there's a hell of a broad." The face of a 30s screwball movie queen doesn't always translate in our pixie princess times, but I know from our years together that men like my sister a lot, which puts me in that strange brotherly realm of being both proud and wary. "Do they still make pimento loaf?" she said by way of greeting, not looking up, just knowing it was me, and I felt the relief I usually felt when I saw her. Things might not be great, but things would be okay. My twin, Go. I've said this phrase so many times, it has become a reassuring mantra instead of actual words. Me twingo. We were born in the 70s, back when twins were rare, a bit magical, cousins of the unicorn, siblings of the elves. We even have a dash of twin telepathy. Go is truly the one person in the entire world I am totally myself with. I don't feel the need to explain my actions to her. I don't clarify, I don't doubt, I don't worry. I don't tell her everything, not anymore. But I tell her more than anyone else, by far. I tell her as much as I can. We spent 9 months back to back covering each other. It became a lifelong habit. It never mattered to me that she was a girl, strange for a deeply self-conscious kid. What can I say? She was always just cool. Pimento loaf, that's like lunch meat, right? I think they do. "We should get some," she said. She arched an eyebrow at me. I'm intrigued. Without asking, she poured me a draft of PBR into a mug of questionable cleanliness. When she caught me staring at the smudged rim, she brought the glass up to her mouth and licked the smudge away, leaving a smear of saliva. She set the mug squarely in front of me. "Better, my prince?" Go firmly believes that I got the best of everything from our parents, that I was the boy they planned on, the single child they could afford, and that she sneaked into this world by clamping onto my ankle, an unwanted stranger. For my dad, a particularly unwanted stranger. She believes she was left to fend for herself throughout childhood, a pitiful creature of random hand-me-downs and forgotten permission slips, tightened budgets and general regret. This vision could be somewhat true. I can barely stand to admit it. "Yes, my squalid little serf," I said, and fluttered my hands in royal dispensation. I huddled over my beer. I needed to sit and drink a beer or three. My nerves were still singing from the morning. "What's up with you?" she asked. "You look all twitchy." She flicked some suds at me, more water than soap. The air conditioning kicked on, ruffling the tops of our heads. We spent more time in the bar than we needed to. It had become the childhood clubhouse we never had. We'd busted open the storage boxes in our mother's basement one drunken night last year. Back when she was alive, but right near the end, when we were in need of comfort, and we revisited the toys and games with much oohing and acking between sips of canned beer. Christmas in August. After Mom died, Go moved into our old house, and we slowly relocated our toys, piecemeal, to the bar. A strawberry shortcake doll, now scentless, pops up on a stool one day, my gift to Go. A tiny Hot Wheels El Camino, one wheel missing, appears on a shelf in the corner. Goes to me. We were thinking of introducing a board game night, even though most of our customers were too old to be nostalgic for our Hungry Hungry Hippos, our game of life with its tiny plastic cars to be filled with tiny plastic pinhead spouses and tiny plastic pinhead babies. I couldn't remember how you won, deep Hasbro thought for the day. Go refilled my beer, refilled her beer. Her left eyelid drooped slightly, It was exactly noon, 12 o'clock, and I wondered how long she'd been drinking. She's had a bumpy decade. My speculative sister, she of the rocket science brain and the rodeo spirit, dropped out of college and moved to Manhattan in the late 90s. She was one of the original dot-com phenoms, made crazy money for 2 years, then took the internet bubble bath in 2000. Go remained unflappable. She was closer to 20 than 30. She was fine. For Act Two, she got her degree and joined the gray-suited world of investment banking. She was mid-level, nothing flashy, nothing blameful, but she lost her job fast with the 2008 financial meltdown. I didn't even know she'd left New York until she phoned me from Mom's house. I give up. I begged her, cajoled her to return, hearing nothing but peeved silence on the other end. After I hung up, I made an anxious pilgrimage to her apartment in the Bowery and saw Gary, her beloved ficus tree, yellow dead on the fire escape, and knew she'd never come back. The bar seemed to cheer her up. She handled the books, she poured the beers, she stole from the tip jar semi-regularly, but then she did more work than me. We never talked about our old lives. We were dones and we were done, and strangely content about it. "So what?" Go said, her usual way of beginning a conversation. "Eh? What? Bad? You look bad." I shrugged a yes. She scanned my face. "Amy?" she asked. It was an easy question. I shrugged again. A confirmation this time. "What you gonna do?" Shrug. Go gave me her amused face, both elbows on the bar, hands cradling chin, hunkering down for an incisive dissection of my marriage. Go, an expert panel of one. "What about her?" "Bad day, it's just a bad day." "Don't let her worry you." Go lit a cigarette. She smoked exactly one a day. "Women are crazy." Go didn't consider herself part of the general category of women, a word she used derisively. I blew Go's smoke back to its owner. "It's our anniversary today, 5 years." "Wow." My sister cocked her head back. She'd been a bridesmaid, all in violet, the gorgeous, raven-haired, amethyst-draped dame, Amy's mother had dubbed her. But anniversaries weren't something she'd remember. "Geez, fuck, dude, that came fast." She blew more smoke toward me, a lazy game of cancer catch. "She going to do one of her, what do you call it? Not scavenger hunt." "Treasure hunt," I said. My wife loved games, mostly mind games, but also actual games of amusement. And for our anniversary, she always set up an elaborate treasure hunt, with each clue leading to the hiding place of the next clue until I reached the end and my present. It was what her dad always did for her mom on their anniversary, and don't think I don't see the gender roles here, that I don't get the hint. But I did not grow up in Amy's household. I grew up in mine. And the last present I remember my dad giving my mom was an iron, set on the kitchen counter, no wrapping paper. "Should we make a wager on how pissed she's going to get at you this year?" Go asked, smiling over the rim of her beer. The problem with Amy's treasure hunts, I never figured out the clues. Our first anniversary back in New York, I went 2 for 7. That was my best year. The opening parley. This place is a bit of a hole in the wall, but we had a great kiss there one Tuesday last fall. Ever been in a spelling bee as a kid? That snowy second after the announcement of the word as you sift your brain to see if you can spell it? It was like that. The blank panic. "An Irish bar in a not-so-Irish place," Amy nudged. I bit the side of my lip, started a shrug, scanning our living room as if the answer might appear. She gave me another very long minute. "We were lost in the rain," she said in a voice that was pleading on the way to peeved. I finished the shrug. "McMahon's, Nick. Remember when we got lost in the rain in Chinatown, trying to find that dim sum place, and it was supposed to be near the statue of Confucius, but it turns out there are 2 statues of Confucius, and we ended up at that random Irish bar all soaking wet, and we slammed a few whiskeys, and you grabbed me and kissed me, and it was, right. You should have done a clue with Confucius. I would have gotten that. The statue wasn't the point. The place was the point. The moment. I just thought it was special." She said these last words in a childish lilt that I once found fetching. It was special. I pulled her to me and kissed her. That smooch right there was my special anniversary reenactment. Let's go do it again at McMahon's. At McMahon's, the bartender, a big, bearded bear kid, saw us come in and grinned, poured us both whiskeys and pushed over the next clue. When I'm down and feeling blue, there's only one place that will do. That one turned out to be the Alice in Wonderland statue at Central Park, which Amy had told me, she knew she told me many times, lightened her moods as a child. I do not remember any of those conversations. I'm being honest here, I just don't. I have a dash of ADD, and I've always found my wife a bit dazzling, in the purest sense of the word. To lose clear vision, especially from looking at bright light. It was enough to be near her and hear her talk. It didn't always matter what she was saying. It should have, but it didn't. By the time we got to the end of the day to exchanging our actual presents, the traditional paper presents for the first year of marriage, Amy was not speaking to me. I love you, Amy. You know I love you, I said, tailing her in and out of the family packs of dazed tourists parked in the middle of the sidewalk, oblivious and open-mouthed. Amy was slipping through the Central Park crowds, maneuvering between laser-eyed joggers and scissor-legged skaters, kneeling parents and toddlers careering like drunks, always just ahead of me, tight-lipped, hurrying nowhere. Me trying to catch up, grab her arm. She stopped finally, gave me a face unmoved as I explained myself, one mental finger tamping down my exasperation. Amy, I don't get why I need to prove my love to you by remembering the exact same things you do, the exact same way you do. It doesn't mean I don't love our life together. A nearby clown blew up a balloon animal, a man bought a rose, a child licked an ice cream cone, and a genuine tradition was born, one I'd never forget. Amy always going overboard, me never, ever worthy of the effort. Happy anniversary, asshole. I'm guessing 5 years, she's going to get really pissed, Go continued. So I hope you got her a really good present. On the to-do list, what's the symbol for 5 years? Paper? Paper is first year, I said. At the end of year one's unexpectedly wrenching treasure hunt, Amy presented me with a set of posh stationery, my initials embossed at the top, the paper so creamy I expected my fingers to come away moist. In return, I'd presented my wife with a bright red dime store paper kite, picturing the park, picnics, warm summer gusts. Neither of us liked our presents. We'd each have preferred the others. It was a reverse O. Henry. Silver? Guessed Go. Bronze? Scrimshaw? Help me out. Wood, I said. There's no romantic present for wood. At the other end of the bar, Sue neatly folded her newspaper and left it on the bar top with her empty mug and a $5 bill. We all exchanged silent smiles as she walked out. I got it, Go said. Go home, fuck her brains out, then smack her with your penis and scream, "There's some wood for you, bitch." We laughed. Then we both flushed pink in our cheeks in the same spot. It was the kind of raunchy, unsisterly joke that Go enjoyed tossing at me like a grenade. It was also the reason why, in high school, there were always rumors that we secretly screwed. Twincest. We were too tight, our inside jokes, our edge-of-the-party whispers. I'm pretty sure I don't need to say this, but you are not Go, you might misconstrue, so I will. My sister and I have never screwed or even thought of screwing. We just really like each other. Go was now pantomiming, dick-slapping my wife. No, Amy and Go were never going to be friends. They were each too territorial. Go was used to being the alpha girl in my life. Amy was used to being the alpha girl in everyone's life. For two people who lived in the same city twice, first New York, now here, they barely knew each other. They flitted in and out of my life like well-timed stage actors, one going out the door as the other came in. And on the rare occasions when they both inhabited the same room, they seemed somewhat bemused at the situation. Before Amy and I got serious, got engaged, got married, I would get glimpses of Go's thoughts in a sentence here or there. It's funny, I can't quite get a beat on her, like who she really is. And you just seem kind of not yourself with her. And there's a difference between really loving someone and loving the idea of her. And finally, the important thing is she makes you really happy. Back when Amy made me really happy. Amy offered her own notions of Go. She's very Missouri, isn't she? And you just have to be in the right mood for her. And She's a little needy about you, but then I guess she doesn't have anyone else. I'd hoped when we all wound up back in Missouri, the two would let it drop. Agree to disagree, free to be you and me. Neither did. Go was funnier than Amy, though, so it was a mismatched battle. Amy was clever, withering, sarcastic. Amy could get me riled up, could make an excellent, barbed point, but Go always made me laugh. It is dangerous to laugh at your spouse. Go, I thought we agreed you'd never mention my genitalia again, I said. That within the bounds of our sibling relationship, I have no genitalia. The phone rang. Go took one more sip of her beer and answered, gave an eye roll and a smile. He sure is here, one moment, please. To me, she mouthed, Carl. Carl Pelly lived across the street from me and Amy. Retired 3 years, divorced 2 years, moved into our development right after. He'd been a traveling salesman, children's party supplies, and I sensed that after 4 decades of motel living, he wasn't quite at home being home. The carpet glinted with shards of glass, the coffee table shattered. End tables were on their sides. Books slid across the floor like a card trick. Even the heavy antique ottoman was belly up, its four tiny feet in the air, like something dead. In the middle of the mess was a pair of good sharp scissors. "Amy!" I began running, bellowing her name. Through the kitchen, where a tea kettle was burning, down to the basement, where the guest room stood empty, and then out the back door. I pounded across our yard onto the slender boat deck leading out over the river. I peeked over the side to see if she was in our rowboat, where I had found her one day, tethered to the dock, rocking in the water, her face to the sun, eyes closed, and as I'd peered down into the dazzling reflections of the river, at her beautiful, still face, she'd suddenly opened her blue eyes and said nothing to me, and I'd said nothing back and gone into the house alone. Amy! She wasn't on the water, she wasn't in the house. Amy was not there. Amy was gone. He showed up at the bar nearly every day with a pungent Hardee's bag, complaining about his budget until he was offered a first drink on the house. This was another thing I learned about Carl from his days in the bar, that he was a functioning but serious alcoholic. He had the good grace to accept whatever we were trying to get rid of, and he meant it. For one full month, Carl drank nothing but Dusty Zimas, circa 1992, that we discovered in the basement. When a hangover kept Carl home, he'd find a reason to call. "Your mailbox looks awfully full today, Nicky. Maybe a package came. Or, it's supposed to rain. You might want to close your windows." The reasons were bogus. Carl just needed to hear the clink of glasses, the glug of a drink being poured. I picked up the phone, shaking a tumbler of ice near the receiver so Carl could imagine his gin. "Hey, Nicky," Carl's watery voice came over. "Sorry to bother you. I just thought you should know. Your door is wide open, and that cat of yours is outside. It isn't supposed to be, right?" I gave a non-committal grunt. "I'd go over and check, but I'm a little under the weather," Carl said heavily. "Don't worry, I said. "It's time for me to go home anyway." It was a 15-minute drive, straight north along River Road. Driving into our development occasionally makes me shiver. The sheer number of gaping dark houses, homes that have never known inhabitants, or homes that have known owners and seen them ejected. The house standing triumphantly voided, humanless. When Amy and I moved in, our only neighbors descended on us. One middle-aged single mom of three bearing a casserole, a young father of triplets with a six-pack of beer, his wife left at home with the triplets, an older Christian couple who lived a few houses down, and of course, Carl from across the street. We sat out on our back deck and watched the river, and they all talked ruefully about arms, and 0% interest, and zero money down. And then they all remarked how Amy and I were the only ones with river access, the only ones without children. "Just the two of you in this whole big house?" the single mom asked, doling out a scrambled egg something. "Just the two of us," I confirmed with a smile, and nodded in appreciation as I took a mouthful of wobbly egg. "Seems lonely." On that she was right. 4 months later, the whole big house lady lost her mortgage battle and disappeared in the night with her three kids. Her house has remained empty. The living room window still has a child's picture of a butterfly taped to it. The bright magic marker sun faded to brown. One evening not long ago, I drove past and saw a man, bearded, bedraggled, staring out from behind the picture, floating in the dark like some sad aquarium fish. He saw me see him and flickered back into the depths of the house. The next day, I left a brown paper bag full of sandwiches on the front step. It sat in the sun untouched for a week, decaying wetly, until I picked it back up and threw it out. Quiet. The complex was always disturbingly quiet. As I neared our home, conscious of the noise of the car engine, I could see the cat was definitely on the steps. Still on the steps, 20 minutes after Carl's call. This was strange. Amy loved the cat. The cat was declawed. The cat was never let outside. Never ever. Because the cat, Bleecker, was sweet but extremely stupid. And despite the LoJack tracking device pelleted somewhere in his fat furry rolls, Amy knew she'd never see the cat again if he ever got out. The cat would waddle straight into the Mississippi River, deedle-de-dum, and float all the way to the Gulf of Mexico into the maw of a hungry bull shark. But it turned out the cat wasn't even smart enough to get past the steps. Bleecker was perched on the edge of the porch, a pudgy but proud sentinel, Private Tryhard. As I pulled into the drive, Carl came out and stood on his own front steps, and I could feel the cat and the old man both watching me as I got out of the car and walked toward the house, the red peonies along the border looking fat and juicy, asking to be devoured. I was about to go into blocking position to get the cat when I saw that the front door was open. Carl had said as much, but seeing it was different. This wasn't taking out the trash back in a minute open. This was wide, gaping, ominous open. Carl hovered across the way, waiting for my response, and like some awful piece of performance art, I felt myself enacting concerned husband. I stood on the middle step and frowned, then took the stairs quickly, two at a time, calling out my wife's name. Silence. "Amy, you home?" I ran straight upstairs. No Amy. The ironing board was set up, the iron still on, a dress waiting to be pressed. "Amy!" As I ran back downstairs, I could see Carl still framed in the open doorway, hands on hips, watching. I swerved into the living room and pulled up short,